Okay, everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. I have another cool little sneak peek for you guys from Nordic Marine Instruments, or NMI. Now, that's actually just an amalgam of the founder's native Danish culture and his passion for high-end everyday tool watches. NMI was created for those who have an affinity for design and proportions, as well as an appreciation for fine materials and craftsmanship. In terms of the type of watch, I consider this an everyday watch. Some key characteristics and design language when you're looking for something that you could wear every day. I'd say this even ventures into the everyday adventure space just because of how capable it is. You're really going to want to find something that's sporty, legible, and tough. This is their LUNØR model, and this is a prototype, pre-production, but I'm happy to share it with you guys. This is their shore gray dial, and it's essentially an updated evolution of their sovereign case, adding a dual moon phase complication with a unique glowing aurora between the full moon cycles. And this is actually a true moon phase gearing, so this is going to have 29.5 day conversion versus your basic 31 day month complication, where sometimes they'll just overlay a moon disc in there. So I think it's cool that, again, they went that extra step. This is going to be available for pre-order. If you check the links down in the description, it's currently available. The full retail price eventually is going to be $1,098, but the pre-order special is going to be right around $799. So pretty compelling in terms of the amount of savings you're going to get. Now, if the question is this the type of watch you search for within the $1,000 price point? Let me know down in the comments below. With all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, so as you can see, quite a handsome piece overall. Definitely has more of a sporty vibe, and then of course you're injecting a certain level of sophistication with typically more dressy moon phase complications. So I do think they did a good job kind of blending those two elements. Of course, there still is a bit of a juxtaposition between that dressy element and the sporty elements, but I will say they do a good job of balancing it. I mean, just look at the way that they executed this dial with the kind of dual moon phase window there. Of course, you have the big panoramic moon phase up top, then you kind of have this miniature down here, and then also the curvature for the upper panoramic moon phase. Again, it's very symmetrical. You even have the branding, whether it be the naming convention or the parent brand on top there. Again, it's very balanced, and I think it's commendable that they did that level of work on there, just trying to make sure that design-wise, this is going to be something that could have a little bit more of a universal appeal. Also, look at the different levels of finishing there and texturing on the dial. Again, just they did a very nice job. This is not the type of watch that I'm, reaching out to brands about, hey, I really think you guys should make a sporty moon phase, but getting it in the metal here, even if it's just to borrow, I have to say it's quite impressive. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Is this something from the perspective of a collector, is this something that you guys search for, is to see kind of genres blend? I know there's so much of a call for original designs. It's kind of like the movies. Everybody wants original stuff, right? People are tired of remakes, but then they don't go see original movies, right? They only want to see the big franchise movies. I think it's a little bit of that happening right now within the micro brand space. Everybody's tired of, I shouldn't say everybody, but the consensus is brands should be moved on from, a lot of brands should be moved on from doing basic homages, and they should really be putting those higher levels of fit and finish towards original designs. Well, hey, here's an original design. What are you going to do about it? All right, now in terms of dimensions here, very universal at 40 millimeters. Thickness wise, it's going to be 11.6, and then lug to lug, just going to be 48 millimeters. So nice, tidy, not undersized. I think more of a sweet spot there. And you can see a very nice drop on that female end link. Check that out. So it's not going to be carried out or elongated at all. So I do like that. Stainless steel, brushed and polished, flat sapphire crystal with an inner anti-reflective coating. You're also going to get a screw down crown, which is nicely signed, as you guys can see there. And then when we take a look, let me just give it a quick wipe here, because of course my fingerprints are now all over these beautiful beveled edges. Let's take a look at the bevel work. Very, very sharp. Not sharp to the touch, but sharp to the eye in terms of course, the transition there is very, very nice. This is, of course, a pre-production prototype that has made the rounds, so it's not going to be in minty condition. So, you know, forgive me that I don't have enough money to just buy every watch that comes out. But in terms of getting into the movement, so underneath that very cool, you know, dial there and that complication, it's actually a Miyota 9015, which is great. So you have a 42-hour power reserve beating at 4 hertz or 28,800 vibrations per hour in terms of that smooth beat rate. You're also going to have, of course, the custom modified moon phase driving wheel, which again is going to be cycling through 29.5 day conversion versus your typical 31 day from your standard date complication. Now, the case back is nicely done here with a display case back. Did they need to do a display case back? Probably not. I think it might have even been fun if they would have done some type of custom moon rotor or glowing rotor, or maybe even just some printing across the window with a moon graphic, and maybe make that glow and then you can kind of see through it. I don't know. That would be fun. I think as is, this has a broad appeal. But for me, I do like to kind of pull the themes together and say, hey, well, if people want something because they're passionate about the moon, let's give them something for people that are passionate about the moon. The dial is going to be this really cool, again, like we mentioned earlier, you're getting multi-level, multi-finished. You're going to have a very nice capped hand stack there, another fine detail. You typically find it much more expensive watches. And then you're going to be having BGW9, so Superluminova for the basic timing functions, and then C3 Superluminova for the moon phase disc, as well as that Aurora. Now, speaking of the Aurora, right, paying tribute to Aurora Borealis, let's take a look at that. Very cool. It's different, right? So when you have the moon, and of course you can probably tell by looking at this that moon is loomed, which is going to come into play here. But then as it's in between, you do get some other fun features there with that nice aurora. And I mean, this is in daylight, you can see, and it has quite a sheen to it, but in the dark, it's going to be even more impressive. Again, note the smaller window opening at the bottom for the duality there of the phasing. Very cool. I do enjoy that quite a bit. Now you're going to see, as you saw, screw down crown, which is going to give you a confidence inspiring 10 atmospheres or 100 meters of water resistance to 20 millimeter lug width with quick release spring bars, solid 3-link bracelet tapering to about 16 millimeters on the small end, where you're going to get this milled push button clasp with 5 positions of toolless micro adjustment. As you can see, still a little bit of plastic on there, and it does ratchet, so you don't have to press the button when you're ratcheting. So that, some people prefer that, some people don't. But I just want to note that for you guys. So with that said, let's go ahead, get this piece on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay, as you can see on my 7.5 inch wrist, or 19 centimeters in circumference, it wears pretty well. And it's not like, although I do have a slightly larger than average wrist at 7.5 inches, you can see it's not especially flat and wide. It's actually quite a tall round wrist. So, you know, again, it's not, if you have a smaller wrist than mine, don't worry if you think this watch might look a bit large. Also, if I get my wrist a bit too close to the camera lens, you're going to notice quite a bit of perspective distortion. It's going to make the sides of my wrist and thus the links there on the bracelet kind of fall away. It's going to make the watch head look much larger. So I'll keep my wrist nice and low and then just tighten up the frame here so that you guys can get still a detailed look, but just add a bit of a truer aspect ratio. That's how this may lay on your own wrist, and check that out. I think it's pretty nicely balanced, and it does have a certain kind of versatile everyday flair to it. Again, even though it's kind of a specific complication. So cool. I'd say again, it's all about that market differentiation. There's so many people that are just focusing again on very simple trend forward watches. I do like to see, especially from an independent micro brand, when they go out of their way to kind of do something a little bit more out of the box and put their own flair on it. And you can see again, this is not just a moon phase watch, right? It's their take on a moon phase watch that is also kind of all happens to be ready for adventure. So very cool. Also, one thing I wanted to notice that this did also come with a strap. Figured I'd show it to you. Really nice graining on this leather strap. It doesn't have quick release spring bars, but construction wise, you can see quite nicely done. Nicely signed, uniquely shaped and contoured in terms of the pin buckle there. So yeah, I mean, I think aesthetically that looks very nice, and you can see, right, how I said this was kind of a versatile design in terms of that everyday adventure, which on the metal bracelet looks again quite adventurous and capable, but then you throw it on this and all of a sudden it's just a bit dressier. What do you guys think? I think that's really cool how they did that. I believe there are other reviews out there on the leather strap. So in the interest of saving time, I'm just going to get this off the wrist, set up for some Lume shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Hey, check out that Lume. Quite impressive, guys. And again, I did kind of slightly adjust that disc so you could get an idea of that aurora effect as well. And you can see the moon is also loomed quite nicely. You see also the play of the green C3 and the blue hued BGW9. So very, very cool. But one thing I always do like to work in is going to be a bit of a low light transition, because you're always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it is nice with these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. As you guys can see, of course, although you're going to get some nice play on the brushing with some deep polished accents, the dial is the star of the show here. Look at the play of the granular texturing and the way that it's reflecting and holding light against that beautiful radial sun ray pattern as well, and the way that it's holding and reflecting light. So very, very nice. And of course, again, the Lume itself is a whole lot of fun. And this is a watch, again, that can be worn in a bit of a dressier type of situation. So I think it's kind of fun that I almost like want to keep this one in the dark longer because of how much I appreciate that disc. So what I'll even try to do is, I think this might be bright enough to where I can manipulate it here in the dark, and the camera will hopefully stay focused. Oh, you can see this didn't get a full charge there because of the because it was in the other position, but check that out. Very cool. Come all the way around. Of course, now this didn't get charged, so let's do that. Ooh, knocking over my little mini flashlights here in the background. Hopefully the camera can stay focused. And then funny enough now, right, because the way that it was loomed, so this will never happen in regular life, but because it was just receiving that blast through the smaller hole when it was out of sight. So I don't know, I just think that's fun. Again, it's something different. I almost want to like do this and cycle through so the whole thing gets fully lit up, which in reality, of course, these are moving, switching about maybe every 22 hours. So you'll never have to worry about getting the entire disc charged at once, because in terms of the viewing window, it's just not the way that it works. But check that out. Ooh, you can even hear it. It's quite a nice tactile action there. I don't know. I don't know where I want to leave this when I get the lights back on. So let's do it here. Get it laid back out. Yeah, that ran a little long. I know normally I just jump straight into everything here, guys, but let's get things closed out, and we'll even dust it off a bit there, just make sure there's nothing. Okay. So in terms of closing thoughts, guys, on the wrist, sporty proportions with a clean and balanced layout, feels very solid with a nice touch of heft. So it's not ultra lightweight. It's not some thin, dressy moon phase. Again, it feels, again, it verges in the everyday adventure space because of the screw down crown, because of the all steel setup with that steel bracelet, with the toolless micro adjustment. In terms of model variants, do check the site links for updates, options, and availability. I believe there are 3 total currently in terms of the different colorways for the dials. So check that. I'll leave a link down in the description of the video. And in terms of comparable models, guys, there's a lot of competition within the kind of expanding everyday outdoor adventure space. But the slightly larger size, right, at 40 millimeters, which I think things are skewing back up again. People like 40s and seeing like 41 and 42s popping back up. So I think the 40 millimeter is a nice kind of still a good sweet spot. I personally would probably enjoy this more at a 38 and a half, but that's my own personal sweet spot in terms of these types of watches that don't have like a turning bezel on there. I just prefer just a bit more of a compact dial on the wrist typically, but I think that, again, the slightly larger size, and then the fact that they added their own unique take on the moon phase, I think helps this stand out, in kind of a sea of your typical everyday versatile, tooly type of classy dress watches type of thing, right? And I shouldn't say dress watches, but watches that can be dressed up and dressed down. So for me, guys, bottom line, this is well executed, thoughtfully designed. And, if you like the look, I don't think you're going to be disappointed with the quality, but the eventual full retail price is on the more expensive side. Again, when this goes full price after the pre-order, this is going to be going for $1,098, so almost $1,100. So I can definitely see this one having a smaller specific audience and not being like a super broad appeal one, but I do think it has the chops to where if you're on the fence about it, I think it's going to be extremely wearable, because I think design-wise it has quite a broad appeal. I don't know if it's going to have a broad enough appeal market-wise, but let me know down in the comments what your guys' thoughts are from that perspective. So if you like the video, please like, and if you're already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.